Hey, honey, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I know you've had a long day at work, but hear me out. That room has 400 tons of whalebones in it. I think we can make it work.
Hear me out, baby. You, me, a bottle of wine, 340 tons of whalebones, and the night. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to Unbelievable, a podcast where I tell my friend Luis 2 stories from history, one true, one fake.
And I, distinguished gentleman Luis, has to figure out which is which.
That's true. Before I get into the 2 stories, which let me just say I have been really looking forward to telling you, Luis. Do you have a little fast fact for me?
I do. We're just going to straight up get right into it, Kurt. I do have a fast fact for you. All right, Kurt, true or false question. Executioners in Middle Ages Europe used to use cloaks on their heads when they executioned people in order to hide themselves from the rest of the society that they lived in and not be ostracized by their community. True or false?
I definitely feel like I've heard this before, but that doesn't bring me any closer to thinking it's true, because there's a lot of things that we've all heard before that are false. I think that it's false. I'm going to go with false because it seems like something that is a little too perfect to be true. Like, it makes too much sense. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking myself in a circle, but I'm going with false.
I'm just going to go ahead and rip the Band-Aid, Kurt. You are so
Please.
right. It is false because
Woo!
Executioners back in Middle Ages Europe, at least in Middle Ages Germany, would be very public about their executioner status. And they didn't hide their face to avoid being ostracized by the community. Everyone knew who the executioner was, and they were ostracized by the community. So
They should have done that.
and it's actually interesting. They did use the opposite. They used very flashy clothes. They used very bright colors to execute people. So everyone knew exactly who they were, and they wanted to know who the executioner was so that they would stay the heck away. So the image of the executioner with a hood over their head did not show up until 1800s, 1900s with cartoons and drawings idealizing the early medieval European roots of the executioner job, which at the time was a state job, was a government job.
It'd be fun to be, a very flashy executioner. Like, you pull up in your like cherry red Ferrari, hop out, your cloak is some sort of very vibrant floral pattern. You're like, yeah, I'm not like other old stuffy executioners, okay? I'm one of the cool executioners. Know what I mean? Hello, fellow teenagers. Who are we executing today?
You step in to apply the execution syringe wearing Balenciaga and Supreme exclusively.
Yes.
Nothing but...
After you drop the guillotine, you do a kickflip over it.
But I'm glad you mentioned the guillotine, Kurt. This is just what I'm going to end the fun fact with, is much like in other jobs, the automation ended jobs in the market, with the entrance of the guillotine providing almost a near perfect execution every single time. The job of the executioner was no longer required. So the state job of the executioner disappeared with the guillotine.
That sucks. I heard they shouldn't have unionized. I heard that's what brought it on.
National
The
Union of
Executioners Union, yeah.
Oh, man.
Enough about capital punishment. Let's get on to these 2 stories. So this first story, Luis, are you familiar with the meme, "You could not possibly comprehend my goals"?
Yes, I am familiar with the meme.
Okay.
Kurt.
Well, this is a story about a man who was such an entrepreneur, okay? He was so built different, had just such a different type of grind set. Even he could not comprehend his own goals. Okay.
Appalled by his own accomplishments.
He may be the greatest entrepreneur to not have a clue what is going on the entire time.
Incredible.
All right. So without further ado, let me tell you about Timothy Dexter. Okay.
Good name to start. That's an entrepreneurial name.
It is nice. I like that he committed to Timothy, I mean, I'm going to get to that he was born in Massachusetts in 1747.
Okay.
But I feel like if your name is Timothy, once you're fully grown, it feels like it should go to Tim or something other than Timothy. I don't know. That's not really important to the story, but yeah.
Kurt, he's from 1700s Massachusetts. Of course, it's Timothy.
I didn't mean to do this, but this may just be another example of how I could not possibly comprehend Timothy's goals.
It all begins with the name.
Yeah. So as a child, Timothy went to school off and on, but he completely dropped out at the age of 8 to become a farm laborer.
Okay.
He's actually a little bit lower than a regular farm laborer. He's doing more like an indentured servant. So he's basically working for room and board. At 14, he became an apprentice for a leather worker. He makes gloves and breeches. And after finishing his apprenticeship, he was given what's called a freedom suit by his employer. So it was common in those days that when an apprentice finished their apprenticeship, their employer would buy them a new set of clothes.
Ooh.
Dexter sold his freedom suit for $8.20 and used the money to relocate to Newburyport, Massachusetts in 1767 at the age of 20 years old.
Okay.
So within a year of moving to Newburyport, Dexter married a wealthy older widow named Elizabeth Frothingham and bought a mansion. Timothy and his wife opened a shop in the basement of the house selling trousers, gloves, hides, and blubber.
All the essentials.
All the essentials. That's true. I didn't know you could just sell like straight blubber. I don't know what that entails, if it's like processed in some way, but does it just mean like right off the whale, or where are they even getting blubber? I don't know.
Blubber, hardly know her.
Not important. Yeah. They pick it right off the vine like that, you know?
Straight from the source.
Straight from the source. So yeah. One important detail about Timothy Dexter. He lived in the same neighborhood as John Hancock, who was, of course, one of the founding fathers, and Thomas Russell, who was at the time one of the richest men in the country. Because of his lowly beginnings, Dexter wasn't accepted by kind of the American nobility, so he would do his best to emulate people who were considered higher class, or his neighbors in this case, in hopes of being allowed access to high society. So in probably an attempt to imitate John Hancock, one of the things he thought was, okay, maybe I should get involved in government. He sent dozens of petitions to the neighboring city of Malden asking for a job in government. Now, keep in mind, this is a man who dropped out of school at the age of 8.
Okay.
So
I left school at 8. I went to the farm, and I am now fully equipped to run this government.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, they're not really having it, but it seems like he just kind of keeps bombarding them with petitions and letters until finally they create a brand new job just
right on.
for Timothy.
He pulled off a Shawshank Redemption.
He did. This new job is called the Informer of Deer. Okay. So it means Timothy is in charge of keeping track and reporting the local deer population. However, the Malden city government records noted that the last deer had disappeared from Malden Woods 19 years prior.
Oh, you've been played, Timothy.
They did the equivalent of like giving your younger brother the Player 2 controller that's not even plugged in.
That's not even plugged in. That's not even from the same console.
Yeah, not even from. Yeah. So let me ask you, we're in the year currently 1770 something.
Good year.
Anything else happening in these years that you know of, Luis?
I'm familiar of at least there's a couple battles, couple skirmishes here and there. Bunker Hill, big one.
Yeah. Well, namely the American Revolution, right?
Yes.
So during this time, 1776, the U.S. is trying to become an independent country. Independent countries need their own currency. So in 1776, the U.S. government printed $19 million of continental currency on paper notes. Because the government needed to fund their war, and they didn't yet have laws that allowed them to tax their citizens, they didn't have income to fund the war. So when they needed to pay for something for the war, they would just simply print more money to pay for it.
The only way to have more money in a country is printing more. Nothing can ever go wrong.
Yeah, just keep printing it, and that always works.
You don't have money, just print more. Any economist listening to this podcast is whinging.
It's true. I once heard someone say, if they're having a drought, why don't they just get the garden hose and fill up their well with some water? Which, man, you could not possibly comprehend that person's goals. You can't comprehend anyone's goals these days.
It's like plugging in your power cord to the power cord. Infinite power.
Whoa.
Nobody thought of that, huh?
Local man knows this one simple trick. Energy companies hate him.
You won't believe what happens next.
So, contrary to what we're saying about how good of an idea this is, it turns out it doesn't work very well. By 1779, the government had printed $226 million of currency, which was now worth about 1/40th of its original value.
Hell yeah.
And the monthly rate of inflation had risen to 47%.
Awesome.
The money was so worthless and also people had so little faith in it that most Americans would use gold, silver, or other goods to buy and trade for things. And the phrase "not worth a continental" became very popular. So you might be wondering, how is this related to Timothy Dexter? Okay.
The informer of deer.
Yes, the the famed informer of deer.
Please call him Informant Timothy. Please.
Excuse me, Dr.
Doctor.
Timothy Dexter, informer of deer. He's got his PhD in informing deer. Excuse me. He went to school.
For 2 years.
Yeah. So by the time the war ended, continental currency was nearly worthless. And more than that, most Americans had lost faith in it as a currency.
Gas was like at 15 a gallon. It's crazy these days.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah. Soldiers of the Revolution who had been paid in continental bills were penniless because their money is now not worth what it was when they agreed to be paid that much. So in an effort to boost public confidence and do a good deed, John Hancock and Thomas Russell, remember again, Timothy Dexter's neighbors, both of them, bought back many of the bills. So it's basically just a charity act for them. However, likely in an effort to imitate his neighbors, Dexter spent his entire life savings, which is about a few $1,000s at that point, on buying back continental bills for a fraction of their original value with no guarantee that they would ever be worth anything. So again, John Hancock and Thomas Russell are doing this as an act of charity. They're not expecting to get that money back. Dexter took all the money he had, more or less, and just threw it all away on buying this money that has only ever rapidly gone down in value.
The market's going to turn around, Kurt. It always does. Just wait for the spike.
Well,
wait for the spike. It's going to come back around.
That's the thing. Somewhat surprisingly, in 1790, the U.S. government agreed to allow continentals to be traded in for treasury bonds at 1% of the original face value. So because Dexter had purchased the bills for such low value, trading them in for treasury bonds turned a huge profit and instantly made him ridiculously rich.
Whoa. Worked out.
So I would like us all to be on the same page at this moment that Timothy Dexter is a continental currency bro. Okay, he bought the dip. Okay, you could not comprehend this man's diamond hands. His hands diamond even through an entire revolutionary war and economic collapse. And he said, "No, I'm not selling until these bad boys make me rich."
I will get my profit. Damn it.
Yeah, but it worked out for him. So now it's time for him to use this new money to transition from continental currency bro to global trade mogul. So the first thing he does is make some new purchases. He buys a mansion on the coast. He has the front lawn decorated with 40 hand-carved wooden statues of great men such as George Washington, Napoleon Bonaparte, Thomas Jefferson, and of course himself. Naturally, yes. The statues reportedly cost more than the house itself. I think this is partially because he insists on having artists brought in from Europe to specially carve the statues.
Right. As you should.
He also purchases a new carriage and a new stable full of horses to go with it. Most importantly, he buys a new fleet of shipping vessels. So now, Luis, it is shipping mogul time. Are you ready?
So this man is just straight up building an army. And it's all wooden figures. He's making his own terracotta army, but it's just all wooden figures of him.
It's strange because it seems to me, just from having done the research, that at this point in time he didn't really understand. Like, he didn't have a plan of like, yeah, I'm gonna buy shipping vessels and then use this money to make more money. He just kind of thought like, this is what wealthy people do. But he did it so quickly. I mean, he spent all this money that he made immediately. It was almost like he had a plan, but it wasn't a plan that had an end goal. It was just like, my plan is buy things to make me look rich and fancy.
Shoot, Kurt, I mean, you saw it whenever we were living together. I started making money and I started buying every single musical instrument under the sun. What was my goal? Become a musician? Become, quote unquote, good at any of them? Absolutely not. But, you know, you have the money, you see a banjo, you buy it, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, Luis. I did think about you while researching this story, because there definitely was a time where it seemed like you could not hardly fall down the stairs without landing in some sort of income or a job or something. And then turn around and say, like, you know what? I think I need a second concertina.
You know what?
Or perhaps an accordion to go with my two concertinas.
You know what? I think I might go with a synthesizer today. You know,
Yeah, who
listen,
knows?
I'm feeling more and more empathetic towards Timothy Dexter. You come across a big amount of money, and yeah, you're gonna use it. See, this is why I could never understand the stock market. Sit on the money? No, I could never be a dragon sitting upon my hoards of gold. You know, I would be throwing that money to enjoy my life and not expect more money.
Do you feel some sort of kinship to a man who has the education level of an 8-year-old who is out here flailing around somehow wildly successfully?
I'm surprised and almost a little bit offended that you're asking me that question when you absolutely know the answer is yes, Kurt.
It's just a bit of showmanship, Luis. I know the answer, but the viewers need to.
I will take none of this, Kurt. Be genuine. Be truthful to our loving audience.
Okay, so let me tell you about some of Timothy's shipping ventures. And let me remind you of two important things that are guiding most of Timothy's decisions. One, he has an education that does not go past the age of 8. And two, he has a very strong desire to impress and fit in with the upper class.
Good.
So what are you going to do if you have this combination of things? Take advice from anyone who gives it to you, of course.
Absolutely.
Right?
What else would you do?
Perhaps the most notable story about Timothy Dexter is some rivals attempted to bankrupt him by advising him to send bed warmers to the West Indies. Bed warmers, of course, would be used for warming beds, which would be important in New England. But in the West Indies, the beds are plenty warm enough already.
I don't know. I feel like the Caribbean needs a little bit more blankets.
Yeah, what has the Caribbean really been missing this whole time? Oh, maybe some smoldering coals underneath an already burning hot bed.
Yeah, you're walking around Jamaica and you're like, this could use a little bit more fleece.
Yeah, you're in your room in the Bahamas, like, bit of a draft in here, isn't there? Bit chilly.
I don't know. I'm kind of cold night, huh?
Yeah. Somehow, by some miracle, though, the captain of Dexter's shipping boat sold the bed warmers as ladles to the local molasses industry and made a huge profit. So he just said, they're not bed warmers. They're big spoons. And everybody loved them.
Right on.
After this, Dexter sent wool mittens to the West Indies as well. This wasn't even on anyone's advice. It just seems like something he decided to try, which should have failed for the same reason.
Maybe nobody told him that the bed warmers were sold for ladles. And he's like, hey, they're eating up these bed warmers. They must be really cold down there in Nassau. Let me send them over some mittens.
You know what I'm just considering is would an 8-year-old level of education, would you get to the point in world geography that you would know where the West Indies are?
Oh, good
like,
question.
maybe he knows absolutely nothing about the West Indies. And he really does think it's super cold there.
He thinks the West Indies is just west of the U.S., so it's up in Montana.
Yeah.
Yes, the West Indies next to Spokane, Washington. Wait, I said that wrong. Spokane, Washington.
What is your education level, Luis? Don't answer that. We're moving on. So these wool mittens that he sends, they get purchased by Asian vendors to be resold in Siberia. And believe it or not, in his shipping career, this happens 2 more times. It's for some reason always wool mittens. He sends to a place where they don't need wool mittens. And there are people there who are either on their way to somewhere where they can sell them, or they buy them thinking, oh, these are like good quality. They could be sold in China or in Siberia or something.
Well, here's my question. Does this man just have an oversupply of woolen mittens just lying around? He says, I have to get rid of them somehow, and I cannot find a market for them here in Massachusetts. I have a frankly ridiculous amount of woolen mittens lying at home, and my wife's going to kill me if I don't sell them soon.
You're asking me questions when I have clearly told you no one can comprehend this man's goals, not even himself. So I don't know what kind of answers you want, Luis.
I'm asking questions more for my own sake, Kurt, right now. I'm trying to make me understand.
I'm not justifying this man's business decisions, okay? I'm along for the ride just as you are, all right?
Hanging on for dear life.
Yeah. Yeah. On one occasion, someone jokingly told Dexter to, quote, ship coal to Newcastle. So Newcastle is the largest producer of coal in England, making it pointless to try to import coal there. So the phrase ship coal to Newcastle means to do something foolish or ineffective.
Oh, hell yeah.
Dexter doesn't understand this and does, in fact, ship coal to Newcastle.
You did it, damn it.
He went for it. He did the thing. But it arrives during a miners' strike, during one of the few times in Newcastle history where there's actually a demand for coal. And because there's a strike, there's actually a huge demand, and he turns a huge profit once again.
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
he's a gamer. Okay. How about a little lightning round? Okay, Luis, ready? All right. When the stray cat population in Newburyport grew too large, Dexter exported stray cats to the Caribbean, where, by coincidence, coincidence, many people were searching for solutions to excess mice.
Jeez.
Dexter sent an excess of Bibles he had to the East Indies, where, by coincidence, Christian missionaries were experiencing a shortage of Bibles.
Okay.
Again, recall the East Indies would be Southeast Asia, so a distinctly non-Christian area. On one occasion, he purchased 340 tons of whale bones.
Oh my God.
The amount seems to imply that it was on accident that he purchased this many, because that's just an unfathomable amount of whale bones. However, he literally bought so many whale bones that he gave himself a monopoly on the market.
Wow.
He purchased almost every whale bone in existence.
Whoa.
And soon after that, the French corset became popular in the colonies, which at that time was made with whale bones. He has all the whale bones. He sold them at a 75% price markup, again, making a massive profit.
Oh my God.
Dexter can't miss, okay?
He's just manifesting. He's just looking at his crystals every night and saying, everything's going to go right for me. Kisses his amethyst before he goes to bed and manifests a good time. Manifests good business choices.
That's true. There has to be one like superstitious or magical thing he's doing somewhere in there, right? He sold his soul or something. We got to figure out what it is.
What's Timothy Dexter's astrological sign? I bet he's an Aries.
Oh, so true, dude. We got to find that out. Maybe he's got some sort of shaman or something or maybe he's got like a magic 8-ball and he's just like, should I buy whale bones? And the 8-ball is like, signs point to yes. And he's like, should it be more than 200 tons? Yes. More than 300 tons? Yes.
Unlikely.
Okay, there's a lot of whale bones. Are you sure, 8-ball?
I don't know if this is the correct amount of whale bones, but who am I to say no to you, Ball?
Look, I also think we've all done some form of the mistake where you accidentally put the wrong amount or the wrong number, and then later you're like, oh, this is vastly more than I wanted, or vastly less. But 340 tons of whale bones? What do you even do with that? Like, the moment you discover, okay, I meant to buy 34 whale bones, I've got 340 tons. Where do you put them? What are you gonna do with the whale bones?
You put them right next to the 5,000 woolen mittens you have in your house.
You flip those bad boys and put them right in your wallet. That's what you do. I think he could have had a fun little swimming in it like Scrooge McDuck in the big pile of coins.
All whale bones.
Yeah, he's just got to add to his room to his house a massive room of just all whale bones.
Mm-hmm.
He can swan dive into.
It's like Captain Crunch. Oops, all berries.
Oops, all whale bones.
Hey, honey, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I know you've had a long day at work, but hear me out. That room has 400 tons of whale bones in it. I think we can make it work.
Hear me out, baby. You, me, a bottle of wine, 340 tons of whale bones, and the night.
We'll take over the world together. We'll see it through. All right, let's continue with Timothy.
Let's continue with Timothy.
This man is giving us too much to talk about, and I feel like there's still plenty to hear.
Okay.
Also, this man is still the informant of deer. I just want to put that out there.
Not the informant, the informer. Okay, he's not snitching on the deer. Please don't besmirch the good name of Timothy.
I apologize, Timothy.
As far as I know, he never stopped becoming the informer of deer.
Good for him.
So this is the end of the notable trade and shipping things he did that I have for you. But as you can imagine with this type of person, he's got a lot of other weird stuff going on outside of just the shipping thing. So here's just some about his life outside of shipping. At age 50, Dexter authored a 24-page book called A Pickle for the Knowing Ones. Because, now, again, let me remind you, dropped out of school at 8. So, because of his lack of school, the book is riddled with grammatical errors and misspelled words, and also had no punctuation whatsoever.
Oh, hell yeah. It's like old German style.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, like a lot of Middle Ages manuscripts just fully have no punctuation, and it's just one long run-on sentence. This man's was just 24 pages long.
It's also, I read some of it, and it's hard to comprehend it all because the spelling and grammar is so bad. I mean, like, words that you wouldn't think could be misspelled were misspelled. Despite all this, the book became popular because of its oddness and went through 8 more printings, which again, of course, bring a bunch of profit to Dexter.
Very strange.
After the second printing, Dexter added an extra page at the end filled only with punctuation marks with a note for readers to use them as necessary throughout the rest of the book.
It's just In case you needed punctuation marks, here you go. Put them wherever you feel.
Yeah, I guess some people complained, and he's like, you know what? You figure it out.
Yeah, you do it. I don't know how to do it for you. That's like the meme that says task failed successfully, you know?
Exactly, yeah. This man is a walking meme, I swear. Remember, before I talked some about how he's very concerned with his public image and how he was regarded in regards to high class or nobility. So he never stopped being obsessed with what others thought of him.
Yeah.
At one point, after buying up a bunch of local real estate, Dexter began referring to himself as the Earl of Chester or Lord Dexter, and he often encouraged others to refer to him as Lord as well. He was known as an alcoholic and a philanderer. In fact, he would often claim not to be married and would tell guests that the woman in his house was not his living wife, but in fact the ghost of his dead wife still haunting their home.
The hell?
At Dexter's first funeral, he faked his death to see how people would react.
Hold on. You didn't mention he faked his funeral, just at his first funeral.
Yeah, his first funeral. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
So 3,000 people attended his wake. When Dexter saw his wife was not crying, he jumped out of the casket, revealed the whole thing was a hoax, and then promptly caned his wife for not being sad enough about his death.
Jesus, man.
Dexter's second funeral was, in fact, the real deal.
And the other one was just a dress rehearsal.
Yeah, the dry run is over. The second funeral, he died at age 59 in 1806. After his death, Dexter left all of his fortune to the poor of Newburyport.
Oh.
So that's the end of Timothy Dexter. What are your thoughts on all that, Luis?
I love it. I'm telling you, he's just failing every task successfully. He's falling down, not landing on his feet, but on the way down, he's grabbing a bunch of cash. Like I don't know.
He's the CEO of Task Failed Successfully. Okay, if Timothy Dexter fell headfirst off a cliff, he would rotate on the way down into some sort of front flip and a swan dive, and people would somehow be clapping by the end of it. Like no matter, if he tripped on his own shoelace, he'd make $100.
If he killed a man in a bar brawl, it would turn out that the man he killed is the most dangerous criminal at the time.
There's a bounty on the man he killed if he killed a man in a bar brawl.
Right. He's been trying to fail this whole time and is just surprised that he is unable to. It's actually he views it as a curse. He's just like, guys, please, for the love of God, let me die. Let me do something wrong. And it just keeps going well. And he's like, no, guys, I swear I'm bad. And everyone's just cheering him on. It's like, guys, no, stop. Stop.
It's a fun little life that Timothy Dexter had, as well as a very confusing one.
This is a fun little life. And
you know what? I feel like it's also a great kind of testimonial for a little podcast I have heard of called In Other News. Because were it not for the American Revolution taking place at the same time, his story may be a much more well-known story.
That's true.
But I'm sure it's overshadowed by, even after the American Revolution, pretty much the next historical landmark is the War of 1812, which is not much later.
Yeah, it's like this man essentially had a stranglehold in the whalebone market and revolutionized woolen mittens and bed warmers for the entire Caribbean, and yet womp womp, the American Revolution, I guess.
Don't forget his years of valiant service as the informer of deer. He held that town together. So, the second story I have for you, Luis, is about a man named Otto Schaefer. Otto Schaefer is born in Stuttgart, Germany in 1896. Mm-hmm. His father, Kurt Schaefer, Kurt with a K, by the way.
Hey-o.
Shout out me.
Shout out.
Okay.
Shout out me.
Hey, come on. His father, Kurt Schaefer, worked at the Daimler Motorengesellschaft factory, DMG for short.
Ooh, say that again, but slowly.
I cannot. That's the best I can do with the pronunciation. So DMG was one of the early car companies. It would go on to become one half of Mercedes-Benz when it was absorbed into the Mercedes-Benz conglomerate and sometime in the 60s, I think. Mm-hmm. But basically, he works at the DMG factory. He will bring home tools and parts that he can tinker with, often having his child Otto help. Otto was said to have an affinity for mechanics and inventiveness. Mm-hmm. He was always working on engine parts with his father, or he'd be stealing some spare parts to build toys for himself.
Ah, yes, the Tony Stark of Stuttgart. Stuttgart.
Yeah, pretty much. I hadn't thought about that, but a little bit, yeah. In 1911, at the age of 14, Otto starts working at the DMG factory with his father. But in 1915, Otto gets drafted to fight in World War I. He serves as a pilot of a fighter plane in the Imperial German Air Service until the war ends in 1918. After the war, Otto starts an airplane company called Luftrettung with some other air service veterans in 1920. Their goal is to design a new, more efficient model of a 3 to 5 person aircraft. Their thought process here is that they've seen how cars, when they first started, were a luxury item of the rich. But now cars have become very commonplace. They think the same is going to happen with air travel, that it'll start out as only the rich or the powerful could afford to travel by air or afford a plane, but soon it'll become common to travel by plane, which they basically correctly predicted. They thought that once this happened, the rich would be willing to pay extra to travel privately, because at this point in time, the newest planes are having more and more seats added as companies try to figure out how they can commercialize this. They think that in the future, the rich will pay extra to travel privately, which they were right, private jets, but they didn't think of that. Instead, they thought that the rich would want to own planes with very few seats, like 3 to 5, so it could just be them and maybe a few other passengers wherever they're going. And they are all the right men for this job, because Otto flew a 2-seater fighter plane during the war. Many of the other soldiers flew 3 to 5 seat bombers. So they've seen these types of aircrafts pushed to their limits in every way. And of course, they also have plenty of ideas of how to improve them.
We're going to give the rich an authentic war experience in these new planes.
Well, I mean, they're talking about transportation planes. They're not going to have a machine gun mounted on them. Although that probably would have been a good business idea, because I bet the rich would have paid a lot.
You ever want to spice up your air travels? Travel with Luftrettung. We will shoot down other planes.
Nice. True.
We will guarantee you getting safely to your destination because we are armed to the teeth. Luftrettung.
They will take out the competition, literally. In 1924, Luftrettung developed their first prototype, then relocated the company to Montpellier, France, to get out of Weimar, Germany. For anybody who doesn't know what happened in Germany after World War I, they became the Weimar Republic. The economy really tanked. It was just not a good time to be trying to start a business. So I don't know this for sure, but
you were going to say, not a great time to be German.
Not a great time to be allocating a lot of money for 340 tons of whale bones. That's what I will tell you, okay?
Hey, but Kurt, as we established, do you ever have a severe economic downturn? Print more money. Always works.
That's true. Print more money, more smoke, more mirrors, more money printed, more whale bones. You heard it here first. It can't fail. You'll be rich.
And always buy, and always and hold and never buy.
And never sell anything. Buy everything.
Never sell, yeah.
Don't sell.
Buy. No sell.
If you buy everything in the world, you'll have a monopoly on everything and never sell it. You can just keep raising the price, but don't sell it.
If you sell early, we'll shoot you in the mouth.
That's true. Because we'll be the ones to, because we'll own all the bullets, because we'll have the monopoly. Because we bought Luis and I bought everything already. You guys are hearing this. It's like 2 weeks after we recorded it. It's already too late. We already own everything.
Yeah, it's all too late. Yeah, don't even try buying bullets.
We printed all the money we need.
Exactly.
To buy
We're
everything.
actually rich.
We're rich.
The Xerox printer I've got here.
Guess what? You'll never see another whalebone again in your life. Okay, they're all in our basement.
We all have our whalebones. You want whalebones? You better get through us. Okay. And that's a threat. That's a challenge.
You must solve our riddles 3 if you desire a whalebone.
If you desire a whalebone, solve these riddles and also fight me.
True, that too. That's the third riddle. Pin Luis.
The third riddle is a fist fight. Anyway,
man, we talked so much about whalebones, I completely lost where I am in my notes.
The Weimar Republic,
Weimar, Germany. Yes. So they moved to Montpellier, France, out of Weimar, Germany. They also renamed the company Imperial Air, and Otto is officially given the title of head design mechanic. In 1925, Imperial Air began production on their first model, the Imperial IM-70, which goes on to become pretty successful. In addition to working on designing airplanes for this company, Otto still is using some of his time to work on his own inventions and projects in his workshop in Stuttgart. So he's splitting his time between working on planes in France and working on other inventions in Stuttgart. Some of his notable inventions include pigeon photography, harness, and camera. So I don't know if this is something you're aware of, Luis, but after World War I, pigeons were used for reconnaissance. So it's just, I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of this, but it's like a pigeon with a little camera strapped to their body, and they would have them trained to fly a route. So they would fly out, the camera would automatically take some pictures and then would come back. Now they have some recon. Otto designed the harness and camera for that.
Incredible.
Otto also designed Flecktarn camo, which is a type of camouflage actually still used by the German military today. It looks pretty similar to just generic looking camouflage, but it's got some different colors thrown in. He had the idea of it from kind of mentally averaging the colors that he would see below during, the various time that he's flying over Europe.
Interesting.
So he kind of mentally took in the colors and then averaged it and then designed this camouflage pattern, I guess you would call it, that is still used by the German military.
It's a pattern that people will never expect because there's tiny cities painted all over.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you wear it as a uniform, in the middle of the back, there's like Berlin or something.
Yeah, exactly. It just looks like Google Maps just on your chest.
Yeah. He also invented the gasoline direct injection engine.
Ooh.
So at this point in time, I must confess, despite having taken a small engines class in high school, I don't fully understand what is different about the gasoline direct injection engine versus the previous engine. From what I read, I do understand that it basically uses a different design to achieve combustion that makes the engine more fuel efficient and more powerful, but I don't know the specifics of it. But it would probably be boring anyway, so we
move on.
avoided that. That's good. We move on. He also helped design and create the first bulldozers and cement trucks.
Ooh. Okay.
So that's just a little bit about his inventiveness. On July 3rd, 1929, Otto was test flying a new Imperial Air prototype, the PR-2 Imperial IM-40. This prototype was intended to be a slimmed down version of its predecessor in order to reduce production costs and increase fuel efficiency. And he's test flying it from Montpellier to Marseille. Montpellier, I don't know if this is a city you're familiar with, but it's basically on the southern coast of France. Marseille is as well. One of them is on the western part, the other is on the eastern part, so he's basically just flying along the coastline of
Marseille
France.
is famous for that one song. May have heard of it. The Marseillaise.
No.
That is I'm not gonna even tell you what it is, Kurt. Just I want everyone that listens to this podcast to be ashamed of you.
Very cool. I'm the one editing this. However, if you're hearing this right now, I guess I chose to leave it in, which means I enjoy being called out.
Kurt does not know what the Marseillaise is. Moving on.
You'll
find out.
So he's doing this test flight. About an hour and 12 minutes into the flight, a sudden change in barometric pressure causes heavy wind, possibly due to the slimmed down design. One of the wings on the aircraft partially breaks off, and Otto is forced to make an emergency landing on a nearby sandbar. Part of the sandbar connects to a small island, so it's really like a very long sandbar. Part of it is high enough that it comes out of the water a little bit, and there's a small island there, but it's really not much. On the island, there's a few bushes and some shrubs, a few flowers actually that are edible, and Otto knows that they're edible from his World War I training, but there's really not much of anything. So the plane is still sitting on the sandbar about 50-ish yards away. So he walks back to the plane from the island a few times. I guess it's proper to say walks, swims? How do you navigate a sandbar, Luis?
Yeah,
coastal dweller.
You actually don't navigate a sandbar, Kurt. Yeah, you stay the heck away from it because that's where all the demons lie.
Not in the deep parts of the ocean? I feel like that's...
No, that's actually how they're trying to fool you. All the scary creatures are right above the water.
It's just what they want you to think, yeah.
It's just, yeah, exactly. You feel a sense of security, and bam, they trap you.
Wow, I never would have guessed it.
Oh, you can walk around a sandbar. It's like a tiny island.
Okay, so walk. Walk is the verb we're going with.
You can use walk. Waddle.
Okay, we'll say walk. Wade, walk. I'm saying walk.
Wade, splish splash.
So Otto splish splashes back to the plane. And finds a small toolbox in the passenger seat. He uses it to take some pieces off of one of the plane wings to build a shelter to block the sun. He also takes a piece of glass from the dashboard and his flask in order to purify drinking water over a fire. He takes the starter from the aircraft and uses some shrubs to start a fire to dry out his clothes and create smoke signals as well as purify a little bit of drinking water. Mm-hmm. The following day, he calculates that he has enough brush to keep the fire burning for about 4 days, but it's unlikely that anyone's going to see the smoke within that time. There's also pretty much nothing to eat. I mentioned the flowers, but obviously that's not going to sustain you very much. There were a few rations in the first aid kit on the airplane, but that's not going to last very long either. So his only real option for survival is to build some sort of raft or boat because he knows that he knows approximately how far he is from the coast. Mm-hmm. It's too far to swim. It's unlikely anyone's going to find him, so pretty much his only option is to make some sort of way to leave. Mm-hmm. But the problem with this is that there's no bamboo or logs on the island to build a raft. There's basically nothing, as I said before. But when he thinks about that, that's not actually true, because what he does have is a set of spare parts that he intimately knows the abilities and limitations of, and a small set of tools specifically chosen to work on those parts. So Otto goes to work dismantling the plane. He removes the pilot seat and the panel that surrounds it. He does this because the prototype was partially held together using new adhesives. Instead of bolts, this was so it would hopefully be lighter. Otto speculated...
It's just a bunch of chewed gum.
Yeah, just a bunch of chewed gum and some tar.
Yeah.
Otto speculated that the interior panel would be mostly watertight because it's basically sealed with these adhesives instead of just being bolted in some places. He takes the tail fin of the aircraft to use as a rudder and some additional paneling to make a piece that attaches to the pilot seat. So he does have to finish closing off the kind of boat shape. He tries to seal the piece on by using a mixture of clay, water, and ashes. So far what he has is a small seat inside basically a paddle boat shape with a rudder built onto the back. So lastly, he goes and removes as many pieces as possible from the propeller engine, and he cuts off about 2/3 of the propeller blades and then mounts that on the rudder.
Okay.
So finally, after 5 days, Otto has completed construction on the first ever motorboat.
Whoa.
On the morning of the 5th day, he sails his boat 17 miles to the coast near Marseille.
Wow.
Most local newspapers report that he sped in on his newly invented single-passenger motorized boat. However, Otto later said in truth that the propeller either ran out of fuel or broke around 10 miles in, so he ended up just paddling the remaining distance with a paddle he'd made from plane wing parts. But that's not as sensational as that, he was lost at sea and he zoomed in on his speedboat no one's ever seen before.
He sailed in so fast, even jumped a little bit as he hit land.
Yeah, he skidded onto the beach, drifted into his parallel parking spot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He actually walked right out of his battle boat straight into his house.
Yeah. When he returns to Montpellier, he makes significant changes to the prototype design, understandably. He also begins designing an Imperial motorboat, which would go on to be the first motorboat ever produced and sold. Between the publicity surrounding Otto's story and the novelty and fun of motorboats, Otto ends up selling a ton of boats. So many, in fact, that a year and a half later, in 1932, Imperial Air is restructured into two companies, Imperial Air and Imperial Sea, both under the parent company Imperial. I know. Well, it's obvious, right? It's right there for the taking.
Yeah.
The name Imperial Air is just taken from the name for the German Air Force during World War I. So really, their only contribution in this whole thing is just the word sea. They got the word Imperial and the word air from something else. They just added sea in one
Germans
place.
are very laconic. They don't need many words. They get to what they're about.
That's true. That's true.
No lollygagging here.
So Otto is named the CEO of Imperial Sea.
He's the CEO of motorboating.
He is the CEO of motorboating. So
coincidentally, also my nickname in high school.
I was thinking while researching this, Otto's quite the adventurer. Just to picture all this, especially with a 1920s aesthetic. You know what I mean? And Imperial is kind of a cool brand name, I feel like, for planes or boats. But I am interested, Luis, to know, what is your opinion of Otto? Do you love him? Do you love the boatman as much as France loves the boatman?
Do you love the boatman? I think so. He's a crafty guy, and I think I have a special affinity for the German folk.
Yeah, that's nice.
So I like him so far. But I'm afraid that you're going to start getting into some shifty stuff because we're getting closer to the not so good era. We're getting bad news bears here.
No, never.
Can we please make a time skip from around 1935 to 1950, please? Can you tell me what happened after 1945, Kurt?
Guess what we are about to do right now, Luis. Because you may, I mean, it seems like you're predicting the reveal a little bit here, but had you not, you may have been wondering why. I'm assuming you have not heard of the boat company Imperial nor the airline company Imperial. So, unfortunately, believe it or not, the former German soldiers who owned and ran Imperial were very patriotic despite having moved their company into France. The Imperial logo was underscored by a very German-looking eagle. Does the phrase "very German-looking eagle" make sense? By the way, when I'm saying
picturing it in my
from
head.
the
Don't
German
worry.
coat of arms.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. All right. However, when the Nazis invaded France, they changed it to the eagle of the Third German Reich to show their support.
I see.
So after the war,
they changed their name to Third Imperial Air.
Yeah, Third Imperial Air. After the war, French citizens were understandably not very likely to buy anything from a German company with a Nazi symbol on their logo.
Yeah, well.
Additionally, very few people had money to buy boats or planes. So, facing certain failure, Imperial was hastily broken into pieces and sold off.
Imagine the German executives of Imperial Air. It's like selling a bunch of boats after the war, already not a great deal. Selling a bunch of boats after the war while being a Nazi, forget about it, man. Absolutely no way.
It's kind of the opposite of Timothy Dexter, because he's a very like take a huge risk for seemingly little reward, and somehow it pays off. They took they didn't gain very much from changing their logo, hypothetically, right? It was something that did not profit them very much. However, the downside of it of having that after the war is over was terrible. They stood to gain nothing and lose everything, and that's what happened.
You could have it all. My empire of dirt and boats.
So let me allow a little ray of sunlight into this very dark portion of the notes on this story, though, Luis, because maybe just the company was bad, but Otto was a good boy.
Oh.
Maybe it's still okay for us to love
Are you
the
telling me
boatman.
he was just following orders, Kurt? I've had it. I'm at my limit.
Oh no, he wanted to do what he did.
Oh no.
So remember, Otto had a lot of inventions. Here's some other inventions I didn't name earlier. So remember the gasoline direct injection engine? Otto also designed a macro version that was used in Panzer tanks.
Oh,
Additionally,
right.
during Germany's occupation of France, he repurposed one of his factories to make artillery shells for the German army.
Of course.
And most unfortunately, I think, Otto helped design the system that vaporized Zyklon B in the gas chambers during the Holocaust.
No.
So,
Oh man.
yeah.
He was enthusiastic
Now-
about it too. Oh, shucks.
Now can we... Yeah, he was so excited for it. Now can we all agree that we hate Otto and we're glad his company failed?
Canceled.
We no longer love the boatman?
No, the CEO of Motorboating has fallen from grace.
True, so true.
A sentence I never thought I'd say.
Otto Schaefer died of lung cancer in 1952 at the age of 57. Good riddance to the boatman, I say. Not soon enough. But that's it. That's the end. That's the end of it. I built him up, and then I tore him down, and then I killed him with lung cancer. Thoughts?
Thoughts?
Concerns? Questions?
Have you just revealed that you invented this story, Kurt? Has this
no,
been
that's me referring to my medium as the storyteller. Okay.
I see.
Because in some ways I feel like a story is only as good as a storyteller.
Yeah. I gotta say.
Not everyone would have thought to ask you in the middle if you love the boatman.
Not many people. Yeah, that's true.
True.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think we're coming across a typical issue where at any point when you're talking about historical German people and German people of note from the early 1900s, eventually you're going to get to the bad dark period. Eventually, even though you don't want them to, every single one is somehow involved with the Third Reich.
Yeah.
It happens.
Never meet your heroes.
It's kind of like whenever you're hearing like a passion story, Christ passion tale, since you hear them all the time. And you always, no matter what they do, no matter what any other pastors may tell you, you always expect crucifixion. There's nothing
That's
you can
true.
do.
Yeah.
You can make Jesus a very hip guy. There's always crucifixion at the end.
It's true.
It's the same thing here. We have a very fun inventor. We have the Tony Stark of early 1900s Germany. And you know what? He did a little bit of war. He did a bit of war crime, but he was a facilitator of millions of deaths. I hate to say I'm not surprised, but every single time it comes as a shock.
Yeah, anytime there's like a very prominent German figure leading up to the 30s and 40s, you're just like, oh no, don't be involved in cutting edge technology. No, don't have trials that you need to run. Don't do anything. Just sit quietly, wait out the next 20 years.
Oh, don't tell me you're inventing something that could potentially help the war effort. Oh no. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's always a bummer.
Exactly.
Always a bummer, but you know what?
It is a bummer.
Yeah. It's like when the Minions, how canonically the Minions have helped in every single global catastrophe, but they coincidentally took a break between 1939 and 1945.
Yeah, exactly.
The history books are empty.
I was thinking that actually. I was like, too bad Otto couldn't have just taken a break with the Minions for a while.
Yeah. The war started. Things are going kind of bad. I'm going to start my motorboat business after this thing blows over.
You know what? I've been set off, okay? Because I don't know if you know, I don't know if I've ranted to you about this before, Luis, but this little detail about the Minions, I'm very weirdly annoyed about.
Here goes the Minion tangent. Get ready.
Disney, don't be such cowards, okay? If they're evil, commit, because they're not saying that they didn't help Genghis Khan and every other, because canonically, right, they go to the worst villain. It's just that they took a break in Antarctica after helping Napoleon. So they helped all the murderers and destroyers and awful people of history. Yeah. Come on. I mean, either sand off the edges on our minions and send them to Antarctica for the whole time, or don't, okay? Let's get a little carnage in here. Come on.
I want more nuanced minions.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, it's DreamWorks, not Disney.
Whatever. It's probably why they won't answer my emails anyway.
Oh, man. Great.
So on that note, what do you think, Luis?
It's a great story, Kurt. Because it all fits in. There's a lot of puzzle pieces that just make sense. Mm-hmm. Like, of course, there's a mechanic in Stuttgart that's really good in the early 1900s. Of course, that mechanic fought in the First War. Of course, that mechanic did stuff in the Second World War. It all fits together really well, Kurt. That's what I'm going to say about that story. I feel like this is a tale we've heard before. I think it's become so common. We can start our own hero's journey with just these things, these points of contact, right? Like, a very bright man goes to war. Very bright man has a breakthrough in technology. Oh no, bright man goes to Second War. Aww. It's the third act twist. Yeah.
Very, very common story to influential figures of the early 20th century.
Yeah. But hey, what are you going to do about it?
What are you going to do? That's always going on. There's always a little bit of war going on. What are you going to do?
Yeah, no matter if you're a fan of German cars, there's a big chance that they were all built by Nazis. So
that's true.
At this point, we kind of have to it's a bitter pill to swallow, but we just have to accept that Nazism existed, alas.
You gotta enjoy the days of the homemade motorboat in France while you can before you get to the fascism.
Exactly. We didn't know we were in the good days.
Don't know what you got till it's gone.
Luis?
You
don't know you're living in the good times until they're gone.
Yeah.
I think it's time to our favorite part of the show.
Yes.
Which
hang on. Let's do this time, okay? Because we'll put it together in editing. Let's each say it 4 times right now, and then we'll have 10 times stacked of us saying it, because Luis and I are gonna right now throw a bunch in there.
Deliberation. Hey there, deliberation. All
right, we're in there. Perfect. So let me remind you of the 2 stories. So the first story was about Timothy Dexter, the continental currency bro, who just couldn't seem to fail in a single business venture, shipping bedpans to the West Indies, Bibles to the East Indies, buying just an insane number of whale bones, faking his death once, and eventually having a real funeral. And the second story was of Otto Schaefer, the German World War I pilot who went on to participate in founding a small aircraft company, but also invent the motorboat and then do some really uncool things afterwards. Whoopee.
Cool. All right. So I'm going to go through the stories again. I'm going to say that Otto Schaefer once more. I really like the details in it, Kurt. The details of going to war, inventing certain engines, and how all of that connected. Like I told you, all the pieces fit very well together, and it seems like it's a story we've heard before, and that does a lot of good to your favor. That story is the true one. However, I feel like you may have thrown me a red herring, is what I'm thinking currently, Kurt.
Okay.
Because you talked about fuel injection engines, direct fuel injection engines, and how you did not learn much from your small engines class in high school. And Kurt, there's been plenty of times when you've corrected me in my auto part knowledge, and I don't know, I feel like you're feeling like you're lying there. I don't know. But
lying about which part? That I don't understand.
Maybe you do know exactly what direct fuel injection is, Kurt, and you're just trying to pull my leg, but we'll see. But the rest of the story, I'm really, really happy with the rest of the story. I'm so down to believe the story. Maybe I'm just pulling your leg a little bit, Kurt, but really it's a story that makes sense, especially when it comes to early or first half of the 20th century. It fits very well together. Now, the other story I love.
Timmy,
that's just the kind of
stupid.
It's just the kind of stupid things that early United States would do. And I am in love. I think it's mostly because I feel a weird connection to Timothy Dexter. I feel weirdly tight with that man. Big fan. So I don't know, Kurt. I feel like all of these coincidences are so coincidental for them to be made up. As ridiculous and wild as they sound, like the whole bed warmers into ladles situation, that's so good. And if it's made up, that's clever as hell. So good job, Kurt. The detail that it's making me.
Well, let me say, either way, it's made up. Either I made it up, or the captain of Timothy Dexter's boat made it up. So either way, somebody gets the appreciation. It was invented somehow.
And here's the thing, too. The detail of corsets being made with whalebone is something that I don't know you would have known if not doing research for this. And I mean, maybe this is just me presupposing your skills and your knowledge, Kurt. So I apologize in advance. But I feel like that's not something you would be terribly familiar with. So I like that detail. So with all of this put together, I'm gonna go on my gut just because it's the story that makes me smile the most. I'm gonna go with Timothy Dexter and failing successfully as the real one.
Timothy Dexter failing successfully. That is correct. That is the true story.
Wow, we
was
did
it?
it.
I can't tell how good of a grasp you had on this one. Were you pretty sure about that, or were you 50-50?
The other one was very, very compelling too. The first one had me hooked exactly for what I told you. It's like there are too many coincidences that are happening here that it's hard to see that they're made up, right? Like this just seems exactly like someone from early United States history would do.
Right.
Maybe I went with my gut because again I felt connected with this man and like I would do that. So I don't know. It was just a gut. The other one felt like it was a bit of an amalgamation of a bunch of different like stories of inventors coming into Germany, right? I think the monomyth of the early inventor getting involved with the Second World War maybe tripped me up. Maybe I just wanted to. I wanted a self-fulfilling prophecy. I just wanted the first one to be true, and it was.
You wanted the whale bones to be real.
I wanted the whale bones to be. I wanted a room full of whale bones.
So let me tell you this about Otto Schaefer, and I think this is why I asked you how close you were on guessing one or the other, because I think this is the most I've ever made up just in a story where I didn't borrow anything from reality.
Oh wow.
Everything, with the exception of geographic locations, some of the minor company names like DMG Car Company or some of the words used, pretty much everything is made up. 99% of that stuff in the story is I just completely made up. You know, some of it I looked up, like what were some things that were invented in the 20s that I could attribute to him, but most of it I ended up just pulling out of thin air anyway.
That's good.
The direct gasoline direct injection engine, that's a real thing.
Okay.
That was really invented in the 20s. And I do kind of like semi understand how it works, but not well enough to explain it to someone else.
Gotcha. Well, you know, I think
that's a Luis classic to say, like, this one part I feel like is the untrue part, and it'll be like the only true part of the story. I swear you've done that like 4 times.
Yeah. Well, see, this makes me think. First of all, very good, Kurt. That really stellar. That very much could be a true story, but it really goes to show.
Oh, hey, good news. Fictitious Otto did not kill anyone.
Yay!
No Nazi inventions.
Woo!
It's all made up. Yay, we can love the boatman again.
We can love the CEO of motorboating because he didn't commit any war crimes. Oh, man. That's good. Well, I was going to tell you that the interesting thing about this is that it just goes to show just how prevalent this monomyth of the German inventors being involved in the Second World War. The first thing that comes to mind is, I don't know, Volkswagen or BMW or Mercedes themselves, how their entire histories are very much intertwined with the Third Reich and the Second World War. So I think that may just be a cultural osmosis situation where we're just very much aware of those kinds of stories and they make sense to us. So and the fact that you made most of it up, I think that's a good show of that too.
Well, what happened is actually it wasn't something I had considered because I was still kind of playing around with the dates because like the invention of the motorboat is like before doing this I wouldn't have been able to tell you probably within 5 years when the motorboat was invented. And I think in the story it ends up being like 1930-ish, right? I said in reality I think it was invented like 1919, as was a bunch of the other inventions had already been around for like 10 or 20 years by the time I claim they're invented in this story. So I was just kind of making this story of like, think about German ingenuity and like, oh, wouldn't it be cool, this like kind of 10s, 20s German inventor who dismantles a plane into making it a motorboat, and then that becomes a popular thing. But then I realized I was going to run up against World War II and have this guy who's clearly super good at making vehicles and little like wartime gadgets, and I was going to have to decide like what his place in that story was going to be. And I thought it would seem less made up if I made him a big villain than a big hero, because obviously no one wants their protagonist to end up being like a terrible person. So it was actually really by accident that I ended up fitting perfectly into this mold of like what's kind of a very classically told story. But yeah, when you were saying it, I was like, that's true. I can totally picture hearing that from other people as well.
Yeah, that's good.
Or about other stories.
Very good. Oh, damn. This also means that there's no CEO of motorboating, which means I can take my crown back.
You can be the CEO of motorboating once again, Louis.
I can go back to being the CEO of motorboating. Thank the stars.
Also, more good news. The whale bones are real, okay? I don't think he ever Scrooge McDuck swan dived into him, but maybe. Possible.
But the chance is there, Kurt, which is very,
the possibility.
Very
That's
heartwarming.
enough. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what do you think about that story now, knowing that that's all true, that all these bizarre coincidences? And I agree, by the way, that it is so strange that it's like too strange to be made up.
That's great.
Which is, I feel like doing this podcast has made me really appreciate how often things are too strange to be made
like
up.
A lot of the times we have to remember that we've always been humans. We've always been the same dumb people, always with the same dumb decisions. And not because we wore fancy suits earlier does it mean that we used to be smarter. No, we've always been dumb, and we've always been careless with our money. Hell, I continue to be to this day, Kurt. and I earn way less money than I used to. Like, it just goes to show that we've always made mistakes, and we often look at the founding fathers as these bright images of upstanding people, when the early government literally gave the job of deer informer to a dude that rode them a lot. That's incredible. Like, the government literally said, hey man, please stop writing for them. Like,
please leave us alone.
Please leave us alone. Let us go begin the U.S. government.
It's funny too, because they probably were like, I would assume, pretty desperate for people to be involved in local government at that point in time.
Yeah, at this point there was 3 people in Congress.
Yeah, that was 17. It was pre-1776, but it was 1770s. So it's around the events leading up to the Revolutionary War. I imagine a lot of people probably wouldn't want to be in local American government because you kind of get like all of the burden with none of the protection.
Exactly.
And they still like won't take this man for anything.
They are begging people to sign up for government jobs, and yet they will not hire this man.
Yeah, it was the town he was from too. It was where he was from till he moved and married the rich widow. So he's like, oh, I got some money now. Can I come back to my hometown and make a difference? And they're like, count deer. We'll tell you that. You can check out our deer.
Oh man, incredible.
Maybe the real deer were the friends Timothy made along the way.
Maybe the real deer were the statues that we made of ourselves along the way.
Oh, so true. So true.
That's so good. I love that John Hancock was like a friend of his.
Not a friend. They just lived in the same neighborhood. I'm sure John Hancock probably didn't want anything to do with this lunatic.
John Hancock hated him.
He saw the statue of himself being John Hancock next to Timothy Dexter in his front yard, and he's like, yeah, no way. No way. No, don't slow down. No, keep driving. Keep going.
Keep driving. Incredible.
What does that bring our score up to, Luis?
We're 9-5, Kurt.
9-5.
Like Dolly Parton once said, the tally is now from 9 me, 5 you. Guessed correctly. Which
I do enjoy a Dolly Parton reference, but I don't enjoy you being so close to winning.
It's true. Once we get to 10, we're gonna do some fun things. We're gonna do some fun things.
I know. I'm on high alert. DEFCON 4. One more loss could mean the
difference.
You're
1 minute to midnight, Kurt.
Frankly. I am 1 minute to midnight, yeah.
Oh, man. Well, thank you, Kurt, for those stories. They were wonderful. Made my night.
I'm glad you enjoyed them. Like I said, I really was looking forward to telling you the Timothy Dexter one because I thought you would enjoy hearing about some idiot with an 8-year-old education somehow making it rich.
Hell yes. Very good.
Anyway, I hope everyone listening also enjoyed the stories of one lunatic and one fascist boat boy. If you want to hear more of our podcasts, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, basically wherever the mainstream platforms of podcasts are. We're also on Instagram at UnbelievablePod and Twitter at UnbelievablePC. If you like what you're hearing, please tell your friends and family about it. Give us a review.
If you follow us on Twitter, make sure to send Kurt what the Marseillaise is.
Oh, true. Please educate me. I welcome it. Anyway, that's all all for this episode. See you next time, everyone. Don't buy so many whale bones. You have a monopoly on the market.
Heard it here first, folks. Tumble out of bed and I stumble to the kitchen, pour myself a cup of ambition, yawn and stretch and try to come to life. Jump in the shower and the blood starts pumping, out on the streets and the traffic starts jumping with folks like me on the job from 9 to 5. Working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living, barely getting by. It's all taken and no giving, they just use your mind. They never give you credit, it's enough to drive you crazy if you let it. 9 to 5, for service and devotion, you would think that I would deserve a fair promotion. Want to move ahead, but the boss won't seem to let me. I swear sometimes I manage that to get